Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Speaking Steagles, the premier Pennsylvania pro football podcast. I am Nick Vete. He's Ricardo Martinez Paz. Free agency. I mean, hey, there's still some moves that could happen. That's just the way that that NFL free agency works. But it's all but wrapped up here. I think everybody's starting to get into draft mode. So we are going to close out NFL free agency with these two organizations and kind of update some last minute moves that have taken place, go through the roster, kind of give a roster breakdown of where the depth chart is at, state of the roster as I like to call it, and yeah, we'll talk about maybe what our favorite and least favorite decision was of free agency. So that being said, Ricardo, how are you doing today, man?
Hey, not too bad, man. It's a beautiful day out. Oh my God. Have you looked outside? It's just like perfect weather out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is perfect. It is perfect weather. I'm glad you're feeling better too, because obviously we had to push this back a little bit. Neither one of us were feeling great last Friday, so
Yeah.
for differing reasons, but we had to push it back nonetheless.
Yeah. We're good. We're back on it now.
All right, we're good. We're ready to go. We're ready to go. So, I mean, both of these teams have made some, I don't want to say minor moves because I feel like both of them like still have moves that they recently made that could still be significant impact moves, but it's not the big time moves of the Eagles, re-signing Darius Slay and James Bradbury. It's not the Pittsburgh Steelers bringing in Isaac Seumalo or bringing back Larry Ogunjobi. So moves that aren't quite on the same scale, but still need to break them down nonetheless. And I think the perfect place for us to start is the move that kind of impacted both of these teams, and that's Terrell Edmunds signing with the Philadelphia Eagles. So what was your reaction to that? What do you make of the signing?
Dude, I remember we got off our last episode and
It
I
was
was
actually
like,
I actually forgot about that. You're so right. You're so right. This was literally something that I brought up right beforehand. So that's the timeline. So anything after Terrell Edmunds signed is what's the recent signings here. But go ahead, say what you were saying.
yeah, no. So I just remember texting you like as soon as it happened. It was literally like a few minutes after we had stopped recording. I was like, man, if we had kept going a few more minutes, we would have seen the breaking news that Terrell Edmonds is signing with the Eagles for a 1 year deal, 2 million. And I mean, 70 tackle last year, 2 sacks. He's a versatile player. I think he brings like a steady presence to this team. Obviously, you know a lot about him, a former Steeler. So I think it's a good, at least short term solution. If the Eagles decide to address the safety position at some point, maybe next year or in this year's draft, I think it's a good placeholder. Whether or not it'll be a long term solution, I don't know, but he's still a solid player who's going to deliver on the field.
I think that such an interesting part of this is the decision by the Eagles to really go all in on bringing back Bradbury and Slay at the corner position, and then sacrificing a little bit at the safety position, letting Marcus Epps go, letting CJ Gardner Johnson go. So you were kind of at this point where it was just really Reed Blankenship was the one guy you're really like, all right, well, we kind of know
Yeah.
what we're getting back in Reed Blankenship here. But now it kind of leaves this new role for Edmonds where it's like in his time in Pittsburgh, he came in and everybody kind of said, like, all right, like the Steelers reached for him a little bit here. He didn't really play like a first round pick his first year or two. But then all of a sudden they bring in Minka Fitzpatrick. The load's kind of taken off of him where he doesn't really have to play like a more of like a center field safety. Fitzpatrick kind of took that over. Fitzpatrick was the versatile guy. Fitzpatrick lined up with anybody. And Terrell Edmonds was really, hey, just be a solid, complimentary safety, come down and play in the box if we need you to. And he really excelled in that role. And he turned into a really good role player on this Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And now the fact that he's going to this Eagles secondary that has a lot of turnover at the safety position, I think it's going to be interesting to see what his role is and if the Eagles try to expand it and whether or not he can kind of handle that more increased workload that he had earlier in his career before Fitzpatrick was with the Steelers. I don't want to put it past him because he's developed really well the last couple of years. And I think that's part of why Pittsburgh gave him a contract offer. He declined and said, I want to go play in Philadelphia. And I think it was because he wanted to kind of see in a role where he had, I think he was betting on himself a little bit in a really a defensive situation where he's going to have a bigger role. He's betting on himself that he can handle it, excel in it, and then potentially get paid big time next year, or at least for as big as a safety is going to get in this league.
Yeah, and I think if Jonathan Gannon had stuck around with the Eagles for another year, I think he would have played more of that Marcus Epps sort of roll down in the box sort of safety, which surefire tackler. But now it's Sean Desai. Don't really know what we're gonna get out of him. He hasn't really. I mean, he's been in the league. Desai's been in the league for quite a while now. Just at the play calling position, not necessarily. He's only had 1 year of experience, so it's going to be really interesting how his role plays out. Edmonds, I'm speaking of there, but yeah, I guess we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say we'll talk about kind of this safety position group a little bit later when we do our state of the roster portion of
Yeah,
this episode. But yeah, I think you laid it out well. And I mean, Reed Blankenship is kind of more of that free roaming free safety. So I think they could complement each other well if that's what the Eagles ultimately decide is going to
yeah,
be the starting tandem they roll with. But we'll touch more on that later. But the Steelers also kind of their biggest roster move outside of obviously Edmonds not wanting to return was they also added to the safety group
yeah.
and brought in Keanu Neal, who played with the Buccaneers last season, spent most of his career with the Atlanta Falcons. The thing with him is he came in and had a really good, solid couple of early seasons with the Falcons, and then injuries kind of derailed his career. And he's never really been the same type of player. But I like the move from the sense of the Steelers had to do something to add to this safety group before the draft. So, I mean, now you're talking about obviously, you've got Minkah Fitzpatrick there, and they did bring back DeMonte Casey earlier. So, I think it's really going to be a situation where Keanu Neal and Casey are going to kind of compete for reps at that strong safety position. I don't know because the Steelers deployed when DeMonte Casey got healthy last year, they ran three safeties a lot. And part of that was playing Edmonds down in the box more. And given the direction that the Steelers have kind of gone with their inside linebacker group of getting guys that play downhill, get behind the line of scrimmage, stuff the run. I could see Keanu Neal kind of playing a lot, down in the box and being also able to have the speed and coverage abilities to run with some of these slot receivers or tight ends that he could potentially deal with. So I like the fit. I do think that it's a step down from what the Steelers had in Edmonds complementing Minkah Fitzpatrick. But I'll tell you what, if they can get solid play out of Evan Neal, he's a guy that Pittsburgh fans are going to absolutely love because he will just come down and knock your head off, plays hard-nosed football, and that's what Steelers fans are love to see, and that's what the Steelers have always been known for in that AFC North division. So I like the signing. It didn't do anything crazy for me. I would have rather had Edmonds back. I like Taylor Rapp. He was still available before they signed Keanu Neal, but you needed to add somebody before the draft, and I'm happy that they brought a third safety in there to go along with KZ and Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I was gonna say he definitely is more of a in the box kind of safety. So maybe he does fit that or sort of replace Edmonds in that role in that sense. But I mean, I think still it's a solid sizing. Sure, it might be a step down, but he's been a starter in this league. And like you said, he will be competing for that starting job. I still think he can be a solid. He can have a solid role in this Steelers defense.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm going to be looking forward to see if he can really kind of still, because I do think that he's got the potential to be, if he's healthy and if he can get to a semblance of what he had in his early career days with Atlanta, then I think he's definitely the second best safety on this roster. So if
Yeah.
he can get back to that, that's kind of what I'll have my eye on for in the early days of training camp. Once we start to kind of look at something like that, that's where my eyes will be in the safety room. But again, there's also the draft, and we'll look more at the depth of this position a little later on. So,
Yeah.
Was there any other like kind of significant moves that the Eagles made? I mean, I know there was a couple of handful ones. They signed that other. I couldn't remember if Justin Evans signed before or after.
That was before.
That was before. Yeah, I thought we talked about
yeah.
that in the last episode, but. I mean, were there any other, if you want to run us through some of the other, if there were any other kind of mid-level moves that they made?
Yeah, the other one is Kentavious Street, the defensive tackle, former Saint. 1 year, 1.3 million. I mean, just from watching a few of his like reels that I saw on like Bleeding Green Nation, he's more of a pass rusher, more of a late down sort of defender. Not really good against the run. He had 3.5 sacks. Drafted in 2018. I mean, Yeah, more as I said before, yeah, sort of that third, like second, third down, obvious passing down situations kind of guy. I mean, against the run, I feel like he's not going to be used very much. So it's definitely more of a depth signing, if anything, and for specific situations. But yeah, it's not a significant signing, I would say.
Yeah. And again, this is the portion of free agency where it's kind of the more minor level moves.
Yeah,
As for the Steelers, they brought back Zach Gentry on a 1-year deal, which I was kind of saying, hey, like this is a guy he's developed well into a good. He's exactly what you want a tight end to, a guy who really gets after it in the blocking game and does enough in the passing game to complement Pat Fryermuth. So that was fine. James Pierre came back in the cornerback room. So he's back on a 1-year deal. I mean, I think that's more for special teams than anything, and just some depth. The Steelers signed LaRaven Clark, who's
yep,
been around on a couple different teams, going to kind of be a swing tackle right now. But again, I'll talk more about the tackle, the tackle position when I get to the offensive lineman portion of the roster breakdown. But he signs for 1 year, 1.2 million deal to kind of play. He's played on both tackle spots, so a fine depth adding, a fine depth signing. And then the other one was Braden Feheko. I believe I'm saying his last name right. Former Charger, again, just depth on the defensive line,
yeah,
specifically at the nose tackle position. Nothing major, signed for less than $1 million. So that's
yeah.
everything the Steelers have done since. I guess I'll just ask you: is there any move that you want to see the Eagles make, potentially before the draft, or are you kind of content with where the roster is at this point before the draft?
I mean,
Because there's
I
one move
guess
I want the Steelers to make really bad before the draft.
I would say I'm content for now, and then whatever happens after the draft or during and after, we can discuss that after. But for now, I think the Eagles are fine. But I want
Yeah.
to hear what you think about the Steelers.
Well, the one guy, and I've been very vocal about it on my personal social
Oh
media
yes,
accounts, that
I
I
know you
want
are.
back in Pittsburgh is
Yep.
Bud Dupree. Now, look, they had him in for 2 visits, I believe. Now, going in for 2 visits, when you've worked with Mike Tomlin in the past, you've been in this building
Yep.
before, you've been in this organization, like why a deal hasn't gotten done, to me, I think it's one of 2 reasons. To me, I think it's him. The Steelers are kind of giving him close to the veteran minimum or a pretty small salary because he's just going to be a rotational edge rusher, which that's really what he is at this point of his career.
Yeah.
Given the injuries that he's sustained and given his kind of drop in play since he's left Pittsburgh. So I don't know if he's trying to kind of see if he can find a starter's job somewhere or if he's looking for somewhere that would offer him more money. If it's not that, then I think the other kind of domino that's waiting to fall is the Steelers are maybe saying, hey, we want you back. We've had a great 2 visits, but we have to do our due diligence and wait and see how the draft board falls for us. Because if we all of a sudden, are sitting here, whether it's at pick 17 or maybe somewhere in the second or third round, and there's a guy that, they feel can come in and be a third edge rusher with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, then maybe they pull the trigger on that, and you really don't need to spend the money on Bud Dupree. So I think that's kind of the other domino that they're waiting to fall. But if we're sitting here after the draft and the Steelers still have the same edge rusher room, I want them to go out and get Bud Dupree. And I'm hoping by that point, or at least before training camp, he's kind of on the same page with Pittsburgh about maybe what his value is. And he's getting somewhere. I don't know. What do you think he's even worth? I mean, do you think he's worth more than $2 million? I mean, I don't think I would give him more than 5.
Yeah, I feel like 5 is the max you'd give him, but I don't know. And like you said, this stage of his career is not really. I mean, injuries have been plaguing him for the last few seasons, so it's kind of you're not really. I don't think he's gonna get very much money anywhere else, really. I mean, well,
Really?
why wouldn't you go back to a place you're familiar with? Just a nice reunion, like you said, with Mike Tomlin and the organization. You already know it. It's like I don't know. I feel like that would make sense just overall. And plus, you're betting on yourself too. If you take a lower deal and maybe you revive your career a little bit in Pittsburgh. Who knows?
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing is I don't want to like rip him or anything because you don't know what the reason is they haven't come to an agreement. But just those are my 2 theories that I kind of have.
Yeah.
2 other things before we kind of move on to our next segment here. 2 names that are still on the free agent market as well. One of them I've talked about with the Steelers is Rock Ya-Sin, the former Colts corner who played with Vegas last year after a trade.
Yep.
Only 27 years old. I mean, I've talked about him coming in just to add some depth to this corner room, and then I think corner would become way less of a priority for the Steelers in the draft. he's still out there. So again, it's a name that the longer he lingers, maybe the more affordable he becomes. But a guy who's probably going to be a career corner number 2. But if you can get one more good season out of Patrick Peterson, I mean, I've talked about this before. Cornerback room of Peterson, Rock Ya-Sin, and Levi Wallace isn't bad at all.
Yeah.
And then the other name, Ricardo, I'm curious what you think. The fact that he's still on the free agent market, but Carson Wentz still remains unsigned after getting cut by Washington earlier. I'm not saying he's coming back to either of these teams, but I mean, what do you make of the fact that, you know, some of these other quarterbacks that have gotten signed, he's still on the market?
Man, I'm not surprised because I mean, if you talk about the off the field issue or like more of his like characteristic, more of his personality, he's kind of like, at least in his time in Philadelphia, just kind of a sore loser. Not really he's not very coachable. I remember lots of sources saying that and coaches saying that after he left. So that's probably a big reason why. I mean, when a player is not willing to learn, you know, not willing to sort of put his ego aside or whatever else it is that he has in his mind, you know, that's a red flag immediately. Especially, I mean, he still like has. I don't think he'll start ever again. Really, he's probably better off as a backup. But it's again, it's unsurprising to me.
I think one of the one kind of what you're touched on here too is it's like if he's not like good enough to be a starter anymore in this league, like you're not like he's not the type of guy that can command a locker room or maybe, you know, has the personality to take that backup role that you're really springing for, and you'd rather just go in a different direction with it. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, the one spot that I kind of thought when he got cut, well, maybe it would work out here would be Carolina with, you know, obviously the connection to Frank Reich. Not saying that, you know, after they traded up, they're still going to obviously go after a young quarterback in the draft, but you know, even as depth, you know, because it seemed like those two guys always got along. But I don't know. I imagine he's going to get scooped up at some point. I can't imagine unless he goes out and retires, he's going to go the whole season without an opportunity. But yeah, still remains unsigned. So
yeah, I mean, someone will get injured at some point, and he'll get scooped up by someone. I don't think anyone's really trying to sign him at the moment. No one really has him on the radar or has.
So,
yeah.
So before we go into our kind of roster breakdown, our you know, state of the roster portion of the episode, let's give our favorite and least favorite offseason decision by each of these organizations. I'll go first with we'll start with the bad news first. I'll give you my least favorite one, and it's pretty easy. The decision to let Cameron Sutton walk.
Yeah.
And I guess it's kind of complemented with bringing Patrick Peterson instead, but Cam Sutton's the guy that, you know, you got to find a way to bring him back on the deal that he got with the Lions. So I believe it was 3 years, and I think it was $9 million a season. What he was getting? I can double check that real quick right here, just because I want to be correct on that. But like I said, he signed with Detroit, and it was $11 million a season, not $9 million a season for 3 years. So, you know, guaranteed at signing $21 million. I'm bringing him back on that deal any day of the week. I think he's one of the most underrated corners in the league, and you've got an aging Patrick Peterson instead. So that was really what was the most disappointing decision to me in this offseason for the Steelers. And I think we're gonna see this Lions secondary really improve with the additions that they've made. And I think Cam Sutton's, you know, I know they brought in CJ Gardner-Johnson. Maybe that's where you're gonna go here, but I think Cameron Sutton, you know, I think he's arguably the best player in their secondary right now for the Lions. I mean, he's that good a player. But anyway, you tell me what you were most disappointed by.
See, I'm glad we were on the same page there. I literally had the exact same player, same non-resigning for the Steelers. But I feel like you would guess mine as well.
Is it CJ Gardner-Johnson?
Yeah.
It's the Detroit Steagles. They took all of our players, Ricardo.
Yeah, literally. I mean, oh my God. He led the league in interceptions. I understand he was injured for, I believe, 5 games, but still, he was like he was a ball hawk. He was a playmaker. And he was a pretty darn good trash talker as well in that back end. And it's just it's just crazy how all these things unfolded. I mean, you talk about Darius Slay, who is literally on his way out. He even tweeted like thanking Philadelphia, and then all of a sudden it's just a 180, and it's like, oh, then he gets re-signed to like a 2-year extension on top of that, on top of coming back in, the Eagles not re-signing CJ Gardner-Johnson. I just think it's a huge, huge loss. And now, the Eagles have to retool. Obviously, they signed Edmonds, they signed Justin Evans. May address it in the draft. Who knows? They have Reed Blankenship still, but it's still, you have an old. I know that's kind of rude to say. Darius Slay is old, but he's in the twilight of his career. He's past his prime. He'll still hold up for another season or two, maybe, but it's. I would have rather had CJ Gardner-Johnson over Slay, honestly.
Well, there's the golden question. I was going to ask you, what's more frustrating? The fact that they chose to bring back Slay and let CJ Gardner-Johnson walk, or is it the fact that CJ Gardner-Johnson left? And really, I mean, it's not like he left and it was any big contract that he got. I don't have it in front of me, but it was a 1-year deal that he got. Yeah, what was the money on it?
Yeah, 1 year, $8 million. I'm pretty sure.
So,
that was like the Eagles could have
frustrating to you, the fact that the Eagles couldn't find a way to offer him 1 year, $9 million, or the fact that they, at the end of the day, did kind of say, "Hey, Darius Slay is the guy that we're kind of prioritizing here between the two."
It's man, I don't know. I think it's a bit of both, because when I think about this draft specifically, it's such a corner heavy draft. There's so many good prospects that you could have drafted someone at 10 with drafted a corner at 10, and you could have had CJ Gardner-Johnson. Like, that would have been fine with that. And then James Bradbury's back too. But I just I don't know if prioritizing Darius Slay was necessarily what happened, but it's just how things unfolded after Gardner-Johnson declined the deal that the Eagles offered. But I still think the Eagles should have done it. They should have offered him at least a little more money. $8 million is nothing.
Yeah,
come on.
I hear you, man. It's frustrating, and it's like all of a sudden the Lions go out and sign these two players that we obviously both wanted back, and now with Cam Sutton, they also brought in Emmanuel Mosley, very kind of under the radar move, and then obviously CJ Gardner-Johnson as well to go along with Jeff Okudah, their former first-round pick. I mean, all of a sudden this Lions team, I mean, they're going to be a team that's, I think they're making the playoffs next year, frankly. I mean, there's always that stat that comes out like every year, 4 teams that didn't make the playoffs the year prior then make the playoffs that season. I think they're one of them. I think Pittsburgh's one of them this year. I mean, I think that their secondary has really improved. And I mean, if they add another defensive lineman to go along with Aiden Hutchinson and some of the other pieces they have there, I think they're very quickly going to be a really good team. You've already saw how good their offense was last year, especially at home.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll talk more about the direction that the Eagles have kind of gone with the secondary in a little bit when we kind of break down the corner and safety rooms. My favorite move of the offseason also probably hurt the Eagles a little bit. Now, I loved Larry Ogunjobi coming back. I was very high on him re-signing with the Steelers. I was kind of talking about it when everybody else was saying, "Oh, there's no way he's coming back to the Steelers. He's going to go out and get big money somewhere." But the one that I really liked was bringing in Isaac Seumalo from the Philadelphia Eagles on the 3-year, $24 million deal. $8 million a season. I mean, I love this signing. The guy, the best analysis I heard, I don't remember who it was. I think it was someone on NFL Network, but they were like, this is a player who played in between the best right tackle in football in Lane Johnson and a Hall of Fame All-Pro center in Jason Kelce. I mean, Lane Johnson's a Hall of Famer too. I don't mean to snub him by the way I kind of phrased that, but played in between 2 Hall of Famers, 2 former All-Pros, and he kind of got cast in the shadow a little bit. So him coming to the Steelers now, I think he fits this culture. I think that he fits what the Steelers want to do, primarily in the run game, but also protecting Kenny Pickett. I think he's got a really high IQ. I think he's going to immediately be one of the smartest guys on the Steelers offensive line. I'm really excited. I get excited about offensive linemen, Ricardo, all right? I know not a lot of people do, but man, did that signing juice me up, especially because it kind of came out of nowhere and wasn't something I think many Steelers experts were expecting.
Yeah, I literally wrote the same thing down. My favorite signing for the Steelers was also Isaac Seumalo. I was like, is that biased to me? Maybe not. But I mean, he only allowed 1 sack, and like you said, a high IQ player. He was just such a good player. I mean, I obviously underappreciated him a little bit because I feel like Jeff Stoutland can develop any lineman, even if he's like works at Walmart for all I care. But
Yeah.
no, but Samuel really did hold up very well in his playing career. I mean, injuries 2 seasons ago. I hope that he can stay healthy with the Steelers. I mean, it's such a huge boost to this offensive line, and I mean, frankly, I don't think the Steelers are done addressing the offensive line, but that's for a later
agree.
topic.
I agree. We'll be talking about that in 2 weeks. We'll be talking
Yeah,
about that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I really like that signing. It was definitely my favorite by far.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely like the move. Definitely like the move. So let's talk about your favorite offseason decision, Ricardo. What did you really like that the Eagles did this offseason?
See, I don't know if there are any specific moves that like wowed me. Um, I actually have written down the Terrell Edmonds signing, but now that I think about it, I'm like, okay, I don't know. That's more of a safe pick. I mean, James Bradbury probably is the biggest one. Obviously, also kind of a result from the CJ Gardner Johnson debacle, whatever happened there. But I think he was a good one. He's still 30 years old, played very, very well. Yeah, it's a new defensive coordinator in Desai, but still, I think Bradbury's got a couple of years, if not a few years, left in him. And obviously younger than Darius Slay as well. So I think it's good that the Eagles brought him back. I still, if you ask me the question, who would I rather have, Slay or Bradbury? I would pick Bradbury. So the fact that the Eagles brought him back, that's
again,
a great move.
not a lot of people were expecting them to do that either, and I think Bradbury's kind of like the go-to answer here for just what the Eagles did. But I think the under the radar one is kind of Rashad Penny a little bit, because I know we've talked about this in the past that I think we both believe that he has the potential to kind of boom with the Eagles a little bit, and if he can stay healthy and gets an increased role compared to his time in Seattle, really it comes down to his health. But if he gets touches, he could potentially excel in this Eagles offense.
Yeah, I did have him in mind too, but I was like, the injuries are the thing that are holding me back from saying this is a favorite move. But then there's a reason. He only got a 1-year deal for like, what was it, $1 million, $2 million, 1 point something. I don't remember, but yeah, it's just because of his injury history. He hasn't. I mean, he didn't get more money. This is more of a prove it sort of deal for him, and sort of,
and it'll be running back by committee for those Eagles. Eagles trio. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So that being said, I think it's just about time for us to get to this fun portion of the of the episode where we'll kind of go position group by position group between these two rosters and kind of give our state of the roster. I think we'll give an A through F grade on how we feel about it. And if we have a couple things on our eye, I mean, there's going to be some position groups that obviously have a little bit to discuss, and there'll be some that'll probably be pretty clean cut. So we'll go through them all. And I think, I don't know, Ricardo, probably easiest to just start on offense and just go through. Yeah. All right. I would get confused if we were jumping all over trying to build up to like quarterback or something at the end. But
I was gonna say, do you want to like bounce back and forth to just like quarterback, Eagles, and then Steelers, or
I think we should do like quarterback for each team, then do like another position for each team, rather than go like all Eagles, all Steelers. So
let's do that.
All right, so let's start with quarterback. Pretty easy for both of you. I mean, I'll go first real quick. I mean, the Steelers, I'm so high on Kenny Pickett, so I'm feeling great about what they have there. Mitch Trubisky seems like he's going to be back in here as the backup, and I believe that the Steelers, if they don't draft a quarterback in a late round, will address QB3 at some point. So I really like where this quarterback room is at. I'm going to give it a B+, really good with potential to grow. So I like where it's at.
I had the same grade as you, B+ as well. Yeah, I mean, for the Eagles, it's fairly obvious when you have Jalen Hurts he's runner-up for MVP, nearly won the Super Bowl, had a spectacular performance. What more do you want me to say? I mean, and even like the backup position, Marcus Mariota, I actually really like that move too. I mean, there's no drop-off, essentially, at least in the running element of the offense. So I gave this, again, this might be biased. Ian Book's back there. He's irrelevant. He's a healthy scratch on game days. I give it an A+. I mean, it's just Jalen Hurts is that good.
It's hard to argue with that. I mean, if they would have brought back Gardner Minshew, it would have been an A. And I mean, I think Marcus Mariota is a better fit as a backup quarterback on this roster. So I think A+ is totally fair. And yeah, I had an A, but I think A plus is, there's no reason it shouldn't be an A plus. So,
Yeah.
given everything last year, so perfectly valid. Let's move over. Let's move over to an interesting one. Let's talk about running back. And for the Steelers, I mean, Najee Harris, a little bit of an, I don't want to say up and down year, because I feel like he really came on strong at the end of the year and finished out the season well. And I mean, you found a diamond in the rough, an undrafted free agent, Jalen Warren out of Oklahoma State, who's your running back too. So it's a real good, running back 1-2 tandem that they've got going on there. And whoever you want that running back 3 to be, whether it's Anthony McFarland or they have Jason Huntley on the roster right now. Master Teague is still on the roster, who's another name, but I kind of like the toughest thing with this is that Benny Snell was really big on special teams as their running back 3. So you'd like to see someone kind of step up, and special teams is kind of an area the Steelers have neglected a little bit in the offseason, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Maybe when we're like kind of bored before training camp post draft. But I really like where this running back room is at, and I think it's only going to get better than what it was last year, with Jalen Warren developing another season and Najee Harris really finding his stride last year. So another room, I'm going to give him a B+.
I gave him an A-. I might be, maybe I just love watching Najee Harris play. That's probably the reason why I gave him a little higher grade than you. But like you said, Jalen Warren, I mean, showed potential last season. And should definitely contribute more than Benny Snell's gone, as you said.
Yeah.
So,
no, I think A- is very fair. It ties in with the offensive line, but we'll talk about them later because, obviously it was very cohesive as the offensive line got better. Harris got better as they ran the ball more. Harris's numbers also went up, but we're in the same realm with the grade there.
Okay. So this is where there's a significant drop off on offense. This running back room is definitely not as good as it was last year, even though 2 of the players are still there from a season ago. Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, Rashad Penny, Trey Sermon. I mean, Gainwell showed signs that he could be a running back 1. He showed that in the playoffs. Can catch and run better than Miles Sanders, at least in the passing or receiving aspects. Boston Scott's the Giants killer. We all know that. You can still get quality yardage, more of a pass catcher as well. But Rashad Penny is the one, I guess, outlier in this because he's new and obviously he's been injured for, just about, I think it was like 47 games in 47 out of 80 something games, which is a crazy stat. At least half his games he's missed. Trey Sermon has been a healthy scratch as well. So it's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, as we said before, running back by committee, there's not like one that stands out necessarily. So I gave it a C+. Maybe that's harsh. I don't know, but it's not a very inspiring or very encouraging running back room.
I originally gave it a B-, but I think a C+ is more valid because, like, literally as you were talking about this, this was something I hadn't even thought about, but it just came to my brain. But the reason that I think it's a good running back room is because it's 2 of the 3 guys you really counted on last year. Plus, you throw Penny in there, and I think it'll also be a position that will be on the radar when the draft comes around. I mean, we'll talk more in depth about that a little bit later episode, but. Like, I think such a big part is the fact that the Eagles relied so much on that quarterback option with Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders that like that's such a big part of their offense, and we'll see how it kind of changes. Obviously, with Shane Steichen going to Indianapolis, but that's something that if they lose a portion of that element of their offense because Miles Sanders isn't there, that's going to hurt, and that's definitely going to be a question going forward. So I like the C+ grade there.
Yeah. All right. Which position we going next then?
You want to go tight end? Let's go tight end.
All right, let's do it.
I mean, I love this tight end room for the Steelers. Pat Freiermuth, I think he's right on the verge of, if he's not a budding star who's about to be a top 10 tight end in the NFL, well, he's as good as you're going to get for a guy that's not kind of in that upper echelon of tight ends. I mean, he can run, he can block, he can catch, he can block, he can kind of get after it if you want to throw him out there, like in a little, give him a little bit of a screen, downfield, red zone target. And he's developed a great relationship with Kenny Pickett. I talked about Zach Gentry coming back as tight end too, which I love. And Connor Hayward, I mean, he's really not a bad option to have as tight end 3, and he can kind of even fill in there for fullback if the Steelers want to, because they don't have a fullback on their roster right now. So I really like this tight end room for the Steelers. And I honestly don't know how it gets much better than what you have unless you have a Travis Kelce or a George Kittle on your roster. So I gave it an A.
Wow. Okay, an A.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. Mine is a B plus.
Okay.
See, now reevaluating my own tight end.
Here's a good way to put it. I feel like the biggest argument you could have against this tight end room is they don't really have a true second offensive weapon at tight end aside from Pat Freiermuth. And
yeah, that's sort of why I was giving it a B plus. But like Freiermuth's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, apart from him, pass catching. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, you go.
Here's the thing: is the offense better the way that the Steelers want to play football with Pat Freiermuth and Zach Gentry as the full tight end 1, tight end 2, or was the Steelers offense better when tight end 1 and 2 was Freiermuth and Eric Ebron a couple seasons ago, and Zach Gentry barely saw the field, and then you were lacking in the run game, lacking in the block.
Right, okay,
so
that makes sense.
That was kind of where my mindset was, where it's like, this is what I'd rather have. And it's like, yes, if Zach Gentry could develop into someone who could catch the ball 50 times a season for, I don't know, 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, like, yeah, like that would be awesome to complement with his pass blocking ability. But you know what? Even if it's just going to be, 25, 30 catches a season for, 200 yards and maybe a touchdown, I'll take that and let Freiermuth be more of the offensive weapon, the dynamic tight end 1, while he's the tight end 2, and you sprinkle Connor Hayward in there where you can.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I don't really have
really
much
kind of just pick your poison.
I get you.
I
understand your
tight end.
Yeah. See, but again, I have to reevaluate mine because maybe I'm too harsh on my own. I don't know, but I'll give you mine for the Eagles tight ends. So it's Dallas Goedert, Jack Stoll, Grant Calcaterra. I mean, everyone, well, at least most basic NFL fans know who Dallas Goedert is, and Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra aren't really, names to write home. I mean, Goddard is one of the best tight ends when he's not injured. I mean, last season's injury was kind of a freak accident in the sense that there was a blatant face mask on the Commanders player, but that's a whole different story. And I mean, yeah, you saw in the Super Bowl, he had that crazy third down catch in between like 2 defenders. It was crazy, but that's just him alone. I would give him like an A. He's one of the very best in the league. But then you look down the depth chart. Jack Stoll, mainly a blocking tight end, not really good passing. He's used more in the run game. Calcaterra also struggles to stay healthy, more of a catching tight end, but not very good in the run game. So it kind of like offsets. So I gave this a B because there's no real like viable second pass catching tight end option outside of Dallas Goedert, really. So I don't know. Maybe the Eagles sign someone else. Maybe they draft someone in the later rounds, someone who can complement Goddard a bit more. I don't know. I mean, sort of have that Zach Ertz Goddard combination that they had a few years ago, but there's a significant drop off when I think about Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra. So that's why I give it a B. Again, maybe that's harsh.
I mean, yeah, and I think it's also kind of valid too. Like, to compare Zach Gentry to Jack Stoll, because both are, known as blocking tight ends. But I mean, Zach Gentry's had 19 receptions the past 2 seasons, over 100 yards both of those years. I mean, Jack Stoll throughout his whole career has only had 15 receptions.
Yeah.
So like there's the difference between those 2 blocking tight ends right there. And like that, like pass catching is not a key part of either of their games, but like you can throw the ball to Zach Gentry if you need to. Like if you can get him open, like he's not going to make any catches through traffic. Like he's not going to go and, get you a big 4th down where he's could, got to outrun a safety or anything like that. But like he's viable if you can get him open, which I mean, I don't know if Jack Stoll or could even do that. So
No,
so
not at all.
there's a little bit of a difference, but both are very talented, blocking tight ends on any tight
Yeah,
end depth chart. So
yeah.
and I like your grade. I agree with it. So we'll go on now. We'll save wide receivers for the end of the offense. You want to go to let's go to the
Okay.
offensive line.
All right. How did you divide this up? I did interior and then the tackles.
Yeah, I did it the same way. I did the same
Oh,
way. So
sweet. Let's go.
all right, let's start with the interior. For the Steelers, it's the center position, Mason Cole, same as last year. Really liked what you had with him. James Daniels had a really good year last year. Obviously, I talked about Isaac Seumalo and the impact he's going to have. So, I mean, the interior of the Steelers offensive line has gotten better among the starters. And then also the fact that Kevin Dotson, your starter for the whole year last year, is really going to have to compete for playing time along with Nate Hairbig, former Jet and also former Eagle. So I really like kind of the depth and the versatility. I mean, Herbig has played. I think he's even played some center in the past and both interior spots. And Seumalo's probably going to be the Steelers' left guard. So I really like the interior of the Steelers. Safe or a center, Mason Cole. I really like what he did last year, but it's not like there was really like an upgrade at center either.
Yeah.
So, like I can't really dock it for that, but I really like what this interior's had. And the interior wasn't really the issue I had going in with this offensive line last year. So I give it a B+ because it's hard for me to really dock this portion of the offensive line. And I think it's honestly going to be a strength for them as the season continues. And, if James Daniels can replicate what he did last year and Seumalo can stay healthy and Mason Cole can build off of his last season, I may be even a little light giving them a B+.
Yeah, I gave him a B, but I definitely agree with what you said. Seumalo is a huge part of it. Mason Cole only allowed 2 sacks last year. Played the 5th most snaps as a center. And then, like you said, there's versatility. James Daniels, Nate Herbig, Kevin Dotson. I mean, they're all going to be competing. I would assume Seumalo is going to take one of those positions. I think he's listed as left guard on one of the depth charts that I was looking at.
Yeah, but he is. He is listed as because Daniels played all 16 games at right guard last year, and that's kind of the discussion is, like, do you move Daniels over or do you move Seumalo over? Because I'm pretty sure Seumalo has played some left guard in the past as well.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, just last year, I believe it was right guard. But in any case, I think we're pretty close in the grades at least.
Yeah, no, I like it. And hey, like the Steelers, all 5, this never happens in the NFL. All 5 of their starters played all 16 games together. You're not going to get that lucky again. And now they have the depth, at least at the interior right now, that I feel comfortable with. So, I like this position group.
Yeah, definitely the strength. And I would probably say the same for the Eagles. I mean, where should I even start, really? Landon Dickerson's fun to watch. He's a mauler. He's developed really well since the Eagles drafted him 2 seasons ago. Jason Kelce, Hall of Famer, as we were talking about before, has still got another season in him. He's definitely going to be up there and as one of the best centers in the league. And then you look at the right guard position, which is going to need to be filled in. At the moment, Cam Jurgens, who's I would assume is going to replace Jason Kelce once he retires, is actually listed as right guard. So that'll be interesting. I think he'll be fine. It's just that's not necessarily the position he was drafted to play. But in any case, Jeff Stoutland will still develop him to play and fill in that role that Seumalo left behind. And then you have Sua Opeta, and Brett Toth, who have both been with the Eagles for a while now. So I would give this an A-. I mean, it's definitely the strength of the Eagles interior of the Eagles offensive line. I mean, that's I don't know if there's anything.
I don't really want to get into like kind of the draft aspect of this, but like, are you comfortable with the depth that's here? I mean, like the only way that you're adding a starting guard is if it's early in the draft. So we don't really have to get into that conversation. But specifically when it comes to the depth of, Opeta and Toth, are you cool with that at the interior?
I mean, maybe one more like lineman. That'd probably be like a later later round sort of thing. At some point, the offensive line is going to be addressed. That's just how it always happens. And with Howie Roseman, it's probably going to be later on. But yeah, no, I think there will be one more person added into that room.
Okay. Yeah, I had this as one of the. What'd you say your grade was for this room again?
I said A minus. I might change that to
Okay.
an A. I don't know, but
Okay. Yeah. I had it as a B plus just because to me, look, we're really high on Cam Jurgens and I believe that he's gonna play there, but I worry that you're one injury away from like, yeah, it's gonna be like Sua Opeta or Brett Toth, playing here at guard as currently constructed. So I
fair
still
enough.
don't
Yeah.
I still don't think the interior is like set in stone yet, which is I guess what I was trying to get across. But
Right,
yeah,
right.
again, still in the same realm here. So let's move to the tackles and the Steelers. This is definitely a position of emphasis. Now,
Yeah.
like I don't want to say Dan Moore or Chukwuma Okorafor, either of them played bad last year, but like you can certainly upgrade at least one of these two spots. And
Yes.
that's my biggest thing with the Steelers is like I don't know if I really want to roll with another season of both of these guys playing at the tackle positions. And then when you look at the depth, it's like LaRaven Clark. Well, it's like, all right, if we're one injury away from LaRaven Clark potentially playing right now, I mean, it kind of concerns me a bit. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, it's laughable, but to me, this is definitely a position that, like,
It's,
I don't want to say, yeah, I guess it hasn't been addressed enough, but I think it's obviously going to be a spot that's looked at in the draft, and hey, like I just hope that it's not that I'm uncomfortable rolling with these guys playing the tackle spots next year, but I'd like for there to be an upgrade. Like they've upgraded the interior so well, and it just feels like we're settling with Chukwuma Okorafor and Dan Moore Jr. at the tackle spots. I mean, Dan Moore Jr. allowed 7 sacks last year, and Chukwuma Okorafor, I'm going to double check right now, but I'm pretty sure he allowed 5 last year. No, I'm sorry, he allowed 3 last year. So, I mean, it's like I'd rather these two guys be potentially competing or at least have another tackle in the mix to I guess just create even just some competition at the spot. So not
yeah.
crazy about this position. I have it as a C minus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I also gave it a C minus. I mean, it needs to be addressed. There's no other way to put it, really.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's so rare that linemen or like all 5 linemen play every single game. That's not going to happen again. Like there's it's very unlikely it happens again. And like you said, if it's just the Raven Clark sitting behind them, then I mean, good luck. I mean, there's got to be at
It'll
some
get
point this
bad in a
pair
hurry if
can
that's
agree.
the case.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, someone else will come in for that position though. I think.
Yeah. So
Um,
what'd you make of the Eagles tackles?
so I have it. Okay, so it's Jordan Mailata who had sort of a down year, took sort of a step back, but he's still really good athletic player, and then hands down the best right tackle in the game. Um, he hasn't allowed a sack in 2 years. This man played with a torn, what was it, torn groin? Like I can't remember what it was, but
Yeah.
he was played with a torn muscle throughout the playoffs, and like that's crazy. And he still didn't allow a sack. Um, and then outside of them, you have Jack Driscoll, who I mean, apart from the game, he got absolutely destroyed by the Saints. He's a fairly solid backup tackle. Fred Johnson, I actually don't really know who this guy is, but he's listed there. Um, I would imagine the Eagles will add someone else, probably to compete for a swing tackle position. But I'd give it an A minus at the moment. It could go up if I just like I just said, the Eagles bring in another tackle, but it's 2 really good tackles. This offensive line as a whole is just really solid from left to right. So
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit all the points. I'd gave them an A. I just think that it's such a good combo that these two have, and I mean, you touched on maybe Mailata taking a little bit of a step back, but I think A minus either way. You can't ask for much better than what the Eagles have built on the offensive line overall recently in recent
yeah,
years. Yeah. So last position on offense. Let's talk about the wide receivers. So for the Steelers, it's an interesting mix. I really love Deontay Johnson. His route running ability, complemented by George Pickens' ability to kind of blow the top off of defense, the contested catch ability. They go really well together. The big question for the Steelers really just comes down to who's playing in the slot and, you know, are you comfortable with their depth? So, you know, right now their slot receiver number one, according to this depth chart I'm looking at, is listed as Calvin Austin, who hasn't played a snap yet. And then behind him is Gunnar Olszewski, who I believe only has like 20 catches on his whole NFL career. As for depth, it's Anthony Miller, who had a nice run with the Bears not long ago, but out all season last year. And then Cody White, who's kind of bounced between the practice squad and active roster. So I think it's certainly a position where, you know, I don't know if it's free agency. The Steelers have always drafted wide receivers so well, but I think another name is going to get added to this room. I think most likely it'll be a slot guy.
Yep.
And the Steelers will kind of be cool with what they have at the outside receiver positions. But that being said, I still like what they have a lot. It's just not quite a finished product yet. It's still one, maybe two pieces away, but definitely at least one more name away. But right now, I think it's a very solid receiver core. I give it a B.
Yeah, I also give it a B. Nice. I mean,
Yeah.
I love George Pickens. Just in 1 year alone, I was just like, I mean, obviously, I would imagine you love him too, but
100%.
the kinds of catches, man.
I'm excited to see a
outrageous.
second year with Kenny Pickett. I'm thrilled to see, you know, where that next level of development can go, and I'm really hoping he becomes even more of a factor in the red zone. But
those two developing together, man, that's going to be scary. I hope they stay there together for like forever, like that. Like it's just they're just so fun to watch. But yeah, Deontay Johnson, I mean, great route runner. I mean, you can't really. I mean, he's just really solid receiver all around.
And that's why him and Pickens complement each other so well, because you can kind of just let Deontay Johnson go over there, do his thing, run his routes. You know, and then George Pickens, all right, double team him. He'll still jump up there and steal the ball from you. So
yeah, exactly. And then
and George Pickens, I think an underrated part of Pickens' game is the fact that he's got speed. He can run the deep routes too. You know, people think, oh, he's a big body, he just goes up and wins jump balls. But like, nah, this guy can burn a corner and go 60 yards on a defense. It's just a matter of the Steelers have to incorporate that more next season.
Yeah, we'll see if they do. But I mean, wide receiver 3 is definitely the biggest question mark. And yeah, you already touched on all the points, really. So the B is definitely the grade I would give it to. So moving on to the Eagles, I mean, you have wide receiver 1A and wide receiver 1B, as they call themselves. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. They're so good together. I mean, 1,000 yards, both of them, this past season. And then, sort of like the Steelers, there's a drop off. There's a question mark with wide receiver 3. Quez Watkins is still on the roster. He was just fell off last year. Just to put it lightly, he fell off. But Britton Covey is more of a special teamer. Greg Ward Jr. has been practice squad for the most part of his career. I would expect the Eagles to probably sign another veteran after losing Zach Pascal as well, or maybe draft someone in the later round. But I would hope it's a speed guy, someone that can. I mean, that's an element that they definitely need. Quez Watkins was supposed to be that sort of guy, but again, fell off. Forgot to catch balls like Nelson Aguilar before he left Philadelphia. But yeah, a speed guy is definitely someone they're gonna need to draft or sign at some point.
Yeah, and I mean the thing that they've got going on for them too much is like the Steelers. It's just you've got two wide receivers that just complement each other so well at the top, but I think it's almost the exact same feel as the Steelers, where it's like it feels like they're at least one more guy away from the room being like done, like ready to go for the season. One, maybe two. It's kind of the vibe I get, but
yeah. So
I think it's definitely the depth and kind of who's going to step up and be that third option.
Yeah. So B+ for now, I'd say.
Okay. I gave them a B just like the Steelers, but yeah, B+.
Enough,
Same realm. All right, let's move over to the defense. See if we can get controversial at all. Maybe throw ourselves like you give somebody an A and I give them like a D-, but I don't know if we're gonna get that. But
we'll see.
Let's see where we'll start. You want to start? Let's start down low and work our way out to the secondary, shall we?
All right, let's do that. All right.
So you want to go first this time?
Sure. Do we want to go? Right. How do we organize this? Because I did defensive tackle, edge / like defensive end sort of.
So I did like D tackle / D defensive end. It's also like the Steelers run like a true like 3-4. So
right.
Like I kind of did it where it was like defensive lineman edge,
Okay.
like edge outside linebackers, and then inside linebackers.
Okay. Well, I'll try and.
You
All right. I'll just start with the defensive tackle then, or the lineman. God, there's a lot.
yeah.
Fletcher
If you want to,
Cox. Yeah.
why don't you separate like the Hassan Reddicks and the Josh Sweats?
Okay. Yeah, that's what I did then. Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah.
All right. Cool. So defensive tackle: Fletcher Cox, Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, Kentavious Street, Marvin Wilson, Marlon. I can never pronounce this guy's name. Tupelodu. And the big loss, obviously,
literally from doing the show with you, like whenever I see his name, I just think of you being like, "It's Marlon." It's
it's just Marlon.
That's just what he's known as.
I heard
like,
it the other day, and I always forget.
Jersey.
Yeah. But
it's like all those athletes where you always think of them by their first name, like LeBron, Kobe. It's Marlon. That's what it is from now on. All right. Anyway, go ahead. I'm all mixed up here. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the big loss was Javon Hargrave to the Niners. God, I hate that, but man, it's not the most encouraging. Hargrave was a huge part of this defense, and now you expect players like Milton Williams, who has shown a lot of promise, who's shown some good moments, and Jordan Davis to step up. Jordan Davis obviously was injured for a good portion of last season. He was playing really well and then didn't really get back to his form. So at the moment, Howie Roseman is banking on those two specifically to really take on a bigger role. And then you have Fletcher Cox, who's, again, past his prime. Took the hometown discount just to stay in Philadelphia and more of a rotational guy. He was very, very efficient that way. Kentavious Street, like I said, way back in the beginning, more of a pass rusher guy. So maybe the Eagles address and draft. Maybe Jalen Carter. Again, that's something for a later discussion. But maybe they draft him, and then Marvin Wilson and Marlon, as we're going to refer to him as now, are more of depth pieces. It's not as good of a room. I mean, they also lost players like Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph, veterans who also were really good against the run. So I give it a B-. I might even say a B+ or C+, just because I feel like they don't have that impact like defensive tackle, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I gave them a B-, but my whole thing with this Eagles room is I feel like it's so weird to hear this from Eagles fans, but I feel like everybody is just kind of saying like, oh, well, like, yeah, if Jordan Davis can be the guy. But it's like, to me, it's like Jordan Davis has to be your best defensive tackle. Like, I'm sorry, if you're counting on like I know Milton Williams. You said him like how well he's developed. Like, that's fine. Fletcher Cox, like, you can't be relying on a guy who's in the twilight of his career to be your best defensive tackle when you traded up in the first round for Jordan Davis last year. Like, sorry, he's got to be the guy who's your best defensive tackle, or like that pick was a bust if he can't be that. Like, look, and I'm not saying his career is going to be shattered if he's not on the level of Javon Hargrave in his second season, but by year 2, he's got to develop at least to the point where he's better than Milton Williams and an aging Fletcher Cox. Like, he needs to be their top defensive tackle right now, and he needs to step up next season. And I still think I agree with you. I think there's a potential that they're going to draft somebody to add to this defensive tackle room. We'll talk about whether it's going to be the first rounder or specific names, Jalen Carter. We'll talk about that in 2 weeks. But I do think they're going to add to this room. But I feel like excuses need to stop being made for Jordan Davis, and he's got to step up and be the guy. And if he can't do that, the Eagles are going to struggle, and they're going to struggle stopping the run, and they're going to be looking to make a similar move like they did last year, adding like Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh halfway through the year.
Yeah, no, that's totally valid. That's one way to put it. I mean, definitely no sugarcoating on that. It's true though. It's true because he's a first rounder. So I didn't really think about it like that. But I'm like, once you say, oh yeah, first round, there's sort of that pedigree, there's sort of that sort of attention that those players get. So
definitely. I mean, that's just how it goes. Is there's going to be those kind of higher expectations on the guys you take in the first round, and not only take in the first round, but give up other assets to trade up and get him. So
that's
and hey, I'm not trying to take anything away from him. When he was healthy and on the field, he looked really good at points last year.
Oh yeah.
So So, hopefully he can kind of replicate that top level success that he had before. So you gave him what was it? Did you end up going with the B minus?
Yeah, I'll say that, but I'd probably venture more towards C plus.
All right, sounds good. So we're right in that same range. So let's
Yeah.
bump things outside on the defensive line, and we'll talk about defensive end or edge rushers, however you want to classify it, based on the Eagles versus Steelers depth chart. But for the Steelers, I guess it's more kind of like the outside. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry, I forgot you went first there. I haven't even done my defensive tackles here, so I'm going to do defensive tackles or defensive ends because the Steelers really in their scheme, they're relying on guys like Cameron Hayward at the defensive end position. Obviously Larry Ogunjobi, who they're bringing back at defensive end position to also stop the run. And then Montravius Adams is their, more prototypical nose tackle. With some depth guys like Braden Fehoko, who I talked about earlier, that they brought in Isaiah Loudermilk, a former 5th-round pick. And then the other big name is DeMarvin Leal, who was the 3rd-round pick last year, who really looked nice in spurts last season. So I like what this group has. You know what you're getting in Cameron Hayward. Larry Ogunjobi, I think in another year with Pittsburgh is only going to kind of excel from where he went last year, and that's definitely the expectation with a 3-year deal. And then Montravius Adams in the nose tackle position is kind of the biggest concern.
Yeah.
And I could see the Steelers potentially adding another nose tackle here. But again, it's not awful, and I'm really excited to see what DeMarvin Leal can kind of develop into going into a second season with him. So I like where this group is at right now. They really didn't suffer any big losses. Chris Wormley was a rotational piece. Tyson Alualu was a rotational piece. And I think with Leal stepping up and potentially adding another piece in the draft, I like where this room is at, kind of just as much as where they were last year, which is a good defensive lineman group, but not great. And they're still going to give up some big games against the run at times. But again, I still think they're going to add a piece at some point. But again, I like where they're at. I give them a B.
Yeah, dead on with mine too. I mean,
okay.
There's really no disagreement. There's nothing egregious here.
Yeah.
But yeah, you already touched on all the points. I mean, yeah, they definitely are solid overall. I mean, improved on the run last season. Ogunjobi was a big part of it. And like you said, him with another year under his belt in this system, it's only going to get better, you would hope. But there's depth. And I mean, Cam Hayward's just a dog.
He's a monster. Yeah.
He can wreck a game still at this age, but
yeah, for sure. So let's kick things outside a little bit and go to however you kind of organized it with outside linebackers / edge rushers / defensive end.
Yeah. Okay. So, I got to speed through these quick. I got class 6:30, but
oh, geez, I did not realize. All right, we'll definitely cut this off at 6:15 no matter what.
Yeah. All right. So, I gave it a B plus. So actually, now I think about it, so it might be a little high. No, that's fine. I actually validated because Hassan Reddick's in that sort of edge role. Josh Sweat had a tremendous year, 11 sacks. He's going to continue to develop. He's going to be opposite of Hassan Reddick as he was all of last season. I mean, Brandon Graham was great off the bench, rotational guy, still very effective. Taron Jackson didn't really play last year. Derek Barnett suffered a torn ACL. Patrick Johnson had his a few positive moments. Not really a standout player, more of a depth player and special teamer. But overall, I mean, Hassan Reddick is also a game wrecker. Offensive coordinators dread game planning around him. He's just that good. And then you have Josh Sweat on the other side who can also, take over a game. I mean, I feel like he should reach that level more consistently this coming season. But B plus is my grid.
Yeah, I give it a B plus as well. And, you talk about the depth here, too, with Brandon Graham being a rotational piece and also Derek Barnett coming back from injury, who's going to be a rotational piece as well. So, I like what the Eagles have here. We'll try and just continue to speed through this. For the Steelers, on the outside, it's TJ Watt, it's Alex Highsmith. You know what you're getting here. Pick your poison, which side you want to attack them from. And because if you double team one side, the other one's coming around the other edge. The issue here is the depth. I've talked about how I want Bud Dupree back to be that rotational piece or, maybe add something in the draft. We'll wait and see on that. But outside of that, it's Jameer Jones. It's former 6th-round pick Quincy Roche. There's not a lot to get excited about. So while it's a two-headed monster at the top, there's still work that needs to be done to add a third edge rusher. I give it a B plus.
I give it an A-. I mean, TJ Watt's just still really good, even if he was injured. Alex Highsmith, like you said, can also be really good. So do we move to linebacker now?
Yeah, inside linebacker or linebacker. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So for the Eagles, I mean, this is easily the weakest part of the defense because Howie Roseman never likes to prioritize this position at all, which is why TJ Edwards walked. But Nicholas Morrow, Nakobe Dean, I would imagine are going to be the starters at inside linebacker. It's just a total change all over. I mean, Christian Ellis and Sean Bradley, more special teamers, but maybe the Eagles consider bringing in someone else. I don't know, maybe in the draft or free agency, but Moreau's a great tackler, just not very good in coverage. Nakobe Dean's got to step up. Even if he was drafted in the third round, he would have gone in the first round had it not been for an injury. So I expect Dean and Moore to be starting, Ellis and Bradley serving more as backups. C- is my grade.
Yeah, I gave it a C. I'm just really excited to see what Nakobe Dean can do, but there's just so many question marks right now. And honestly, I don't know if it's really going to be anything different through it. This is just going to be a position of question going into the season. I like you said, it's not like it's really a priority to add this position in the draft. For most teams, it's not just the Eagles in that sense. So inside linebacker for the Steelers, the two big additions, Cole Holcomb coming from Washington and Landon Roberts coming from Miami, joined Mark Robinson really as the three primary inside linebackers here. And they're all downhill guys. They're all going to stick their nose in the line of scrimmage and go and try to make plays in the backfield and bring down the quarterback or get some tackles for the loss with these running backs. So I like it. All of them kind of fit Pittsburgh and, hard-nosed football. I love Cole Holcomb's mullet. I think it really just fits the whole vibe of this team and the city of Pittsburgh. So I like what they have. I don't think they're done. I'll talk about that more in the draft episode. But right now, where everything's kind of situated, I give it a B-.
Yeah, I also gave it a B-. Wow, I feel like I'm reading your mind.
You're hitting right on with the Steelers.
Like I could show you right now every single grade. I'm not even joking. But yeah, B- is also fine. For pretty much the same reasons you said. So now I guess we'll move to corner. This is at the moment the Eagles' strongest position group. Darius Slay, who might be he's past his prime, but still is going to be pretty good this season. James Bradbury re-signed to that 3-year deal. Avonte Maddox, who was just injured a lot. I mean, this past season, but still one of the best slot corners, I think. Greedy Williams it might be an underrated signing as that fourth corner. Zach McPherson, Josh Jobe, Josiah Scott, they've all been with the Eagles for the last 2 seasons at least. So I think that this is I would give it an A on it because there's depth, there's quality. Pretty good starters. You have corner 1, corner 2, and then you have your slot corners pretty covered, and then you have 4 other players who can cover those positions. Maybe one of them gets cut. Who knows? But I like where the cornerback room is right now.
Yeah, I really like this corner room, and you know what? It's like they have kind of the best of both worlds. They prioritize corner over safety, which I do think it's smart, even though maybe you could have made the case for C.J. Gardner-Johnson for a number of different reasons, including obviously his versatility to, not be an exclusive safety. But it's also the fact it's like corner is more, like that. You're going up against some of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And if you don't have good corners, you're going to be in trouble. So the Eagles really prioritized that. And it's not just top heavy, even though Darius Slay and James Bradbury are maybe getting up there in age, they're still 2 top corners in the NFL. And the Eagles have the depth like you talked about. So we were in lockstep here. I gave them an A as well.
Sweet.
Yeah. So to go through the Steelers corner room, I didn't actually talk about Patrick Peterson much because that was more last episode I talked about him. But you know what? The Steelers corner room, here's my issue with it. It's like Patrick Peterson, yes, he played well last year, but getting up there in age, if he goes and regresses back to how he played 2 seasons ago, that's going to be troublesome. And like I said, he's just getting older. Levi Wallace, all right, maybe I'm sounding pessimistic with the corner room here, but if we get Levi Wallace from the first 6 games of last year versus Levi Wallace from the last 6 games of last year, that's troublesome at corner too. Arthur Maulet, yeah, he was good in a reduced role right now, but I'm not looking to rely on him as being the slot corner, your third corner overall. And I mean, Akella Witherspoon, James Pierre. Look, I mean, I know Witherspoon was hurt last year. Maybe he can bounce back to how he played 2 seasons ago. But again, that's a lot of eggs you're putting in that basket. And James Pierre, I mean, I think we've kind of, the book's been written on him. He's a depth piece at most. So I'm pretty concerned about this corner room, especially because of how important it is to having a successful defense. So I'm concerned about it, man. And I'm not crazy about what they've done so far. And I think it's definitely a position that's going to be of emphasis to still add to. I'm only giving it a C-.
Wow. Okay, that's where the biggest disparity is because I gave it a B-.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we're off by a whole letter grade.
Wow, that's our biggest one.
Yeah.
I mean, I just thought it was. I mean, Withers. I don't know. I mean, now that I hear your argument a bit more, I'm like, that there's a lot of question marks, a lot of, I mean, things you have to rely on for this quarterback room to, I guess, succeed. And man, I would lower it to, I would say, a C+ maybe. But I mean, C- does definitely make sense with your argument.
And for me, it's just like without another piece in there. And again, I hate that I'm thinking on the pessimistic aspect of it because I like to be a positive fan, but there's just too much here that can go wrong. There's nothing that I can hang my hat on and be like, well, hey, even if this goes wrong, that goes wrong, like we can hang our hat. We know we're getting from this guy. And that's really what you lack with letting Cam Sutton go. You knew what you had in him week in and week out, and you let it go. And now there's question marks with every other piece here. But hey, if it all turns the opposite direction and it all goes exactly as according to plan, then it could be a very good corner group. I still just think they need to add another piece one way or another before training camp.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So we'll move on to the other secondary position, safety. I mean, this is just full blown, like blown up at this point for the Eagles. But Reed Blankenship is the only one, and Kayvon Wallace, who remain. Blankenship showed lots of promise. I think he could definitely start as an undrafted free agent, another white safety in the NFL. That's something you don't see very often, other than Harrison Smith. But Terrell Edmonds should also be competing for that other safety position. I think it's a solid signing, as I said before. Justin Evans, more of a depth piece. Kayvon Wallace, more of a depth piece at this point. And then there's Andre. I can never pronounce this guy's name either. Yeah. He's been, something like that. But he's actually also been with the Eagles for a bit. He just has never panned out, really. More of a special teamer. If not, he's a healthy scratch / practice squad guy. But a lot of question marks as to who's playing where and the depth positions. I mean, I give it a C+. It's just not very encouraging. It's much weaker than the cornerback room. So
yeah, I mean, I gave it a B-. I mean, I thought about giving it a B, but B- is where I'm going with it. The one thing I'll give it though, and you kind of touched on it, they have depth here. So it's like, it's kind of like what I talked about with the Steelers corner room is you don't really have that guy you can sort of hang your hat on and say, well, this is what we're getting from him. I feel like there's question marks, even though I feel like you do kind of know what you're getting with Terrell Edmonds, but I could still pick apart some questions with him, which I think I kind of did earlier in the show. But I like their depth, and maybe it's a spot that they still find a way to add another piece to at some point. But overall, I don't think it's bad, but you prioritize the corner room more, and you have a corner room that we both gave an A for, and ultimately you're going to kind of sacrifice a little bit at safety. So it is what it is. All right, so I'll move over to safety for the Steelers now. Look, Minkah Fitzpatrick, I mean, arguably the best safety in the league. So versatile, can play center field, can go and guard some of the best slot receivers or tight ends in the NFL. He's a ball hawk at times. He can go up and 2 seasons ago, he had like 130 tackles or something like that. So you know what you're getting with him. And then you have DeMonte Casey coming back, Keanu Neal, who we talked about, Trey Norwood, a former 7th-round pick who I really like, Miles Killebrew, the special teams expert, and Elijah Riley, who was there all of last year. So, hey, it's not a bad safety room. I don't think it's as good as last year where you had Edmonds in there instead of Keanu Neal, but I still think that there's upside with it, and I still think that ultimately, depending on how healthy Keanu Neal is and how well he adapts to playing with Pittsburgh, it could potentially be a better safety group than last year. So I give it a B+.
Yeah, right on with you on that.
All right, man.
Yeah.
We're in lockstep. You want to give anything to special teams real quick? Sneak it
I
in
was
before
gonna say,
class.
do we want to do the kicker and punter?
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead,
we
real
could.
quick. Just
All
rapid
right,
fire with it.
Jake Elliott, A-, one of the best in the league. Aaron Cepas, horrible. But I just give him a D for that. I mean, the Eagles should look elsewhere. Just get rid of him. Someone else to compete with. God, I hate him. He's terrible.
All right, I'll go real quick. I didn't prepare this, but off the top of my head, Presley Harvin at punter. I mean, I think I would have to go and look at it. I think he was better than he was 2 years ago. I'll give him a B-. Chris Boswell, not as good as he's been in the past. He's got to really have a nice bounce back year, but still one of the best kickers in the league. I'll give him an A. The Steelers they lost a lot of special teams key guys, both covering special teams and kick punt returners. So it's going to be a major question mark here. I'll give that a C+ right now, but major question marks there.
Yeah, special team overall, I'd say probably a C. But yeah, just never very good anyway.
Ricardo, what class do you have, bro? What do you got to go and run to?
Photojournalism. So
photojournalism. All right, let's go. That shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah.
All right. You can get excited about that. Well, you have fun in class. I didn't even know we had classes today. I thought they were all canceled. I hope I didn't miss
Apparently 6:30s are still on. I don't know.
6:30s. All right, so I'm good. I missed my 11 o'clock. We're chilling. All right.
Yeah, no, you're good.
All right, we're good there. All right. Well, anyway, it's been a blast. Next episode, we're doing a big draft episode. You're going to want to be here for that. It's going to be a ton of fun. Until then, we will see you next time. Take care.